Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another discussion with Serious Mike. I, I guess I don't know. I guess my problem more than anything isn't that I have a problem with ideas to think about. It's that I don't know what's valuable to other people. What other kinds of discussions and ideas are valuable to other people? I also think that some of the things that I'm interested in are just something that not everybody is interested in, and I guess that's part of what I'm going to talk about today. I want to talk about how today we seem to live in a world where facts no longer matter. Appearances, performative arts is all that's really going on, and the underlying facts are an afterthought at best if they're even implemented. And that's wild to me. I'm the kind of a person who I primarily focus on facts. I like facts. I like truth. Sit around spending a lot of time thinking, going through the rationale of, what things are and how things work. And that's always been fascinating to me. And I suppose I'm equally fascinated by how few people seem interested in that. It literally seems all consuming to me to know more, to want more truth, to understand more, get a better picture of what's going on. And I don't really see that as a driving force in people. Even in circles where we see things like self-help or spirituality, like even that doesn't really seem interested in being connected to facts. Now, I understand that the world of spirituality enters a world of faith where part of the point is to have faith in something. And I suppose that's interesting, but what what do we gain by escaping the notions of truth? What do we gain by, trying to do something other than seek truth? What do we gain by faith? And I suppose, first of all, one of the problems that I have with what most people's perception of faith is that faith is some like magical force that's supposed to come about because you want it to, and that doesn't really make sense to me. It doesn't really make sense that we wish or will anything into existence. I don't know. I do a lot of wishing, and I don't often get the things that I wish for. Like, I mean, not in like a formal sense, just in a, well, I'd really want that. You're walking through and see something you can't afford, and you kind of want it. Well, I mean, having faith that you're going to get that is just weird to me. I don't understand how somebody could think that they get stuff by a belief. And but that's the detachment from reality that we're in. And it's interesting. I guess when I think about this, one of the things that fascinates me is an old perspective that I suppose I was introduced to through Alan Watts. The notion that we're all just kind of asleep and performers in the world, that we are just kind of here behind this meat sack identity, and we perform to be that. And it's kind of interesting because if you think about some of the things that go along with that, like, what do we do when we go out in the public? We perform, we introduce ourselves, we tell people what we do, we tell people what makes us think we're important. And it's all a performance. It's all, this is why you should like me, this is why you should pay attention to me, this is why you should value me. And there's some very realistic reasons in that. Like, as a survival strategy, we as humans have come to the point of cooperation and societal norms. We've found our survival strategy in cooperation and altering our environment. That's our primary survival strategies, I think. And so I guess it's normal that we want to fit into the group, but what causes us to be able to fit into the group in this modern age seems very different than what it used to be. It used to be, we built our friends around kindness. We built our friends around, what worked, what, we could cooperate to do. We built our communities based on cooperation and working together. And sure, we'd have disagreements. Different people would think different things happened, but we've come up with a lot of strategies for conflict resolution. We've come up with ways for leadership to finalize decisions. We've come up with ways for people to vote on how they think things should go. And we seem to have abandoned all of these things for this notion of individuality. We now want to be individual. We want to be expressive. We want to be ourselves. We want to be separate and distinct. And I think part of that's the world's gotten pretty big, and it's really hard to feel important in such a big world. We used to have communities that were only community sized. We used to sit around, and our community was the people that traveled in our group when we were hunting gathering. Even when I was a child, like my friends were the people that were like lived on my block, and like we had like the childhood rivalries, right? Like our block versus your block, or this side of town versus that side of town, and we had these groups, and we had a fundamental interaction. We had a fundamental trust in each other. We had a fundamental need for that group to accept us, because if we were outside of that, well, where else do you have to go? Because you have these rivalries, say, with the kids, a few blocks down or whatever. Well, if you do something against your own group, well, now you're vulnerable to those that you're rival with. They may, do something, I mean, kids screw with each other. It's kind of weird how those rivalries and almost gang activity, you might try to steal each other's shit, or, hide each other's bikes, or, knock each other off bikes. That was a real common when I was a kid. Take your back tire across somebody else's front tire, knock them off their bike. That's how that's how our quote unquote little bicycle gangs at 8 years old worked. And you needed the people that you were with, because there was safety in numbers, and you could do more with your friends. And so we had this sense of cooperation that I don't know what really happened. It's really been dissolving for some time. And I wonder if it's me, but I don't think it is. Like, we talk about a loneliness crisis throughout the world right now. There's all kinds of issues that we have that seem to be stemming from the fact that people go online, they create a community that they're not actually ingrained in. While it gives us some social contact, it doesn't give us a true community, right? Like, we don't get online and talk to people. They're not helping us. They're not doing things for us. So what I mean by community, like, I've lived in communities where, a member of our community would get sick or have a child, and we'd take meals to them. We'd take turns. We'd assign out different people to have the responsibility of taking care of our own. This is what I remember growing up with, and I don't see this happening today in the way that I did. And part of it's I moved. I come from a different part of the country. Maybe it's still alive and well where I come from, but I'm not sure that's true. I think a lot of it's this notion of social media. We've moved our communities to online. It's easier to get people, see, and I think this is part of it. Like, it's easier to get people that are aligned with our views, and it's easier to get along with people then that also think the same way that we do. And so we go online and we get all of this, and then we lose contact with that of differing opinions. And we start assuming the other side is lying about everything. In a lot of cases they are. There's always distortions, right? Perspective creates distortion. And just like any type of social contact, we got a constant game of telephone going on. Even if somebody started the facts initially that were true, it got distorted. Story got told from person to person, and there's no pushback on this, because, well, you trust your tribe, you trust what you're with. And that's one of the problems that we have with online communities is we can now go where everybody we go with agrees with us, and those that don't agree with us, we can just block. There's very little consequence in that. We don't really have any threats like the other gang down the street that we have to worry about. And so we feel like we've got our community, but that community doesn't have our back. When something happens, the community doesn't care. They may not even notice we're gone. Because you're now in an online, Discord server that has 400 people, and you really only know 2 or 3 of them. And, well, they live across the country or across the world, and they're not going to be able to do anything. I mean, think about it. How much more difficult is it today to find help to do something like moving compared to what it used to be? Today we just say, well, it's a capitalist society. We got moving companies. Go hire a moving company. Well, that's not practical. Have you seen the economy? Jesus fucking Christ. Ain't nobody going to be able to afford anything anymore. And so we've got this place where we're all just living where it's easy, because we don't have to worry about conflict when we have a group that we agree with everything on. We don't have to deal with how to get along or how to exchange goods and services so much because, well, we've got capitalism, we've got all the crap you could ever want to buy down at the Walmart, and you can just go get that. You don't need to work nice with the blacksmith so that he's willing to, shoe your horse when you need that, because it used to matter. It used to matter that you depended on your local labor. We all knew each other. And the way you treated that community often mattered how you got treated in return. Well, if we're in an online silo with in chats with everybody that agrees with us, and we hide that from the rest of the world, and we go out into that world, and they don't know anything about that, and we're suspicious of anybody that doesn't agree with us. We can't find anybody locally that agrees with us. How are we actually satisfying that which we really need as humans? Our primary survival strategy of cooperation is now just an illusion anymore for so many of us that just live our lives online. And it's just depressing. And then in that, we get to the point to where now we have this problem with facts, right? Like now that we're all separated, it's a new kind of segregation. It's a segregation by ideology instead of a segregation by race now, right? We're moving into this. What do you believe? And you pick your group on that, and we're still trying to live this tribalistic life. We're still trying to pit my group against yours. And is that really ever going to work? Well, I don't know. We're figuring it out. We're doing our best, but is it really sustainable to go on in a world where you believe whatever it is that goes on in your group, and then you pretend that's what the world is, and everybody's living in some kind of distorted reality? And I guess the truth of the matter is that we've always kind of been that way. Everybody lives in a distorted reality. Something I came across interesting lately was I guess I've always believed in the notion that we all have different concepts of what we think of an idea. Like what I think of when I think of mom or woman. This is a huge debate going on culturally right now. What I think of when I think of a woman very well could be different than what you think of as a woman. It kind of depends on what influenced you in your life, what you grew up with, what kind of women were around is going to dictate what your perception of woman is. And so people make these comments about how hard it is to, define woman, pretending that they have some simplified version that's based on, biology or body display or something like that. But even that doesn't make any sense. We just know that's nonsense. I mean, there are people born with, genes that are intersex. We know that, people are born with genitals that actually don't match their chromosomal alignment. And it's very interesting. It's rare, but it exists. And so to pretend that we know all the answers and that a woman is just a vagina owner, like that's ridiculously absurd to reduce it to that. Because there are plenty of people that are born with like this has been common practice for a long time, maybe back as far as maybe the 50s or so is when I first remember hearing about it. But somebody born intersex with like genitals that are mutilated or somehow don't appear as we think of normal. Well, it's most common that this happens in somebody who is genetically a man, but they grow genetic deformities. Well, do you know what they do? They most of the time they put that infant up for surgery and they give it a vagina, and then they declare that a female assigned at birth person, but they have male genetics, XY chromosomes, and that's a thing that exists and it's real. And is that a woman? Well, see, the complexity is it kind of still boils down to what is it that we think of as a woman. There are people that say that, well, that's still a woman. I say it's more complicated than that. You have indicators of womanhood. You've got indicators of manhood. Which one do you actually go with? Which one do you weight the most? It's just what you believe tends to be an optimization of how you analyze the evidence, assuming you even care about the evidence, which I guess is the goal of what I really wanted to talk about today. Is the underlying evidence is just ignored. We have people like RFK Jr. who literally knows nothing about anything. It is fucking insane to me how how somebody that stupid ended up at the top of Health and Human Services. He thinks that circumcision causes autism. Well, if that's true, then wouldn't any real injury as an infant be more likely as causing autism? So what? Any child that gets a cut, well, is that causing autism? Well, then what? If that's your theory, then is it really the vaccines causing the autism, as they falsely claim? That's also scientifically just shown to be garbage. Which, by the way, let's say, like, since we're talking about facts, let's talk about some facts here. This is a thing that people don't know. A long time ago, Penn and Teller laid this out very, very, very well. If you have a population that was getting, even if you take at face value the old study that there was about a 1 in 10,000, I believe it was 1 in 10,000 increased risk of autism, or maybe it was 1 in 1,000 risk of increased autism, then you're still better off with all these vaccines, because all these vaccines are saving more than 1 in 1,000 lives. So is it better to have somebody die because they have many people die because they didn't have access, so maybe you might have 20, 30, 50 people dying to some of these diseases. Like polio is really, really bad. Even if the polio vaccine were to cause autism, preventing the number of deaths is still way more prevention than even if every one of those people that would have died got autism instead. Aren't we better off because we saved those lives with the vaccine? And it's just a logical fallacy that nobody seems to really consider. When they're mad about vaccines causing autism, they forget about the people who are crippled by polio. Sometimes it impacts their mental capacity. So it could be worse than autism, theoretically, to catch polio if you survive it. Not everybody survives polio. So what about the deaths? Is it autism a better outcome than death? And when you start looking at the numbers, it doesn't really matter. Even the asserted numbers causing of vaccines increasing the risk of autism is offset by the number of lives we can demonstrate have been saved. So even the worst case scenario out there isn't worse than not going vaccinated. And it's crazy to me that people want to blame vaccines for all the problems that are going on when we know that they're saving lives. Now, I get it. When we're talking about something that isn't necessarily as lethal or long-term crippling, like we've got this long COVID thing, like, okay, that's it's like the after effects of like polio, right? Like rather than having crippled legs or a crippled back or all these other crippling things that polio does, long COVID has these other vague mental symptoms and other things. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's a thing. Well, what if it causes, what if vaccines caused, I don't know, 1 case in 1,000 extra of autism by having that vaccine out there, but it prevents 30 cases of long COVID? Well, which is worse, long COVID or autism? Well, I guess it depends on if you're asking somebody that has autism or long COVID. Ask somebody who has both, and that's probably a better place to get that opinion. But this is one of the things that we've lost the ability to critically think this through. We've lost the ability to ask the questions, and we just blindly go along with, oh, something's bad because maybe it's associated with something bad. Well, that isn't the complete picture. And for the record, even though I went through the exercise of explaining how vaccines still make sense even if they cause autism, it doesn't really matter because they don't. There is no evidence that this is happening. It's not real. And that's really incredibly frustrating. And why do people not care about the facts? Why do people not care about the critical thinking? Well, honestly, I think it's because we don't have any experience with it anymore. If you grow up and all you did was sit at home playing on a tablet, looking at the internet with whatever you were allowed to watch, which was probably the ideology of your parents, then you're going to grow up stuck in a world where all you know is that, and anything outside of that just seems false. I've known this. I've come from a part of the country where we have sheltered people in religion. And the truth is they are fed lies. They are told that, they are told that, like there are religions that they're told blood transfusions are unsafe and will kill you. And so they refuse life-saving blood transfusions because of the danger of it. There are people that believe God will strike you down if you seek man to help heal your things. That's a belief that's out there. And it's just wildly crazy to me that people can go on believing this with the evidence and research we've done to this day. And the only real real way that that can go is, one, ignorance. There's willful ignorance. There's an intentional, attempt to hide information in certain groups. And I'm not saying this is just religious people. There's plenty of other groups that will hide information, that will control the information flow. Most of them do behave in some kind of cult-like way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be religiously based. And so we ignore these facts. We don't do anything with that. And so what's the solution? How do we get out of that? Well, I don't know, man. We have a bit of a ride. I guess I'm not here to point out that I can solve everything. I guess I'm here because I guess I want people to understand the problems. I want people to understand that we need to be thinking about and talking about what's really going on. Not in a it's your fault way, not in a blame way, but an actual true problem solving way. In thinking through, what do the different sides believe and why do they believe them? What can we do to make that better? And it just gets wilder and wilder because we do have certain groups that depend on suppressing other groups. And so I guess here's one thing. I would be wary of any group that needs silence from the other side in order to push their message. If they just need to silence you, if they need to use violence against you because of your message, if they need to do something forcibly because of the incompatibility of your message, well, what do we do with that? Because we do have that. We do have that level of oppression. We do have systematic attempts to silence certain viewpoints and ideas. And I think that's just a red flag. If you find somebody that needs the other people to be shut down, that can't allow the other argument to exist, who needs it to be 100% their way, and the other side just doesn't even get a say or a vote or even time to speak, then you got to really question that. Because why would, if your idea is better, why wouldn't you let your idea win? Why wouldn't you go to the debate and push your idea and try to convince people? That's what we used to do in this society. We used to go, we'd argue, we'd have public debates of the smartest people we had talking through the topics, and we'd all go and we'd actually try to learn something, and we would actually then try to form what was a semi-informed opinion. And today, we just pick sides. We pick an outcome that we like, and we decide that whatever it is that was decided along the way, whatever tricks or facts or do or don't exist aren't really relevant, and we just go with our side. So I guess I'd say be wary about that. If you find yourself in a group where only one ideology is allowed to be talked about, and you're not even allowed to argue the other side, be suspicious. If you're not allowed to hold an opposing view or an opinion, be suspicious. That sounds like suppression, oppression, and trying to, limit ideology. And I just did a podcast on this the other day, where we talked about fascism and some of these other terms. It's fascist to sit there and use force to silence somebody else's opinion. That's fascist behavior. That's authoritarian behavior. That's controlling behavior. And it's not good for society. We can do leadership without demands. We can do leadership with the carrot rather than the stick. And we just don't seem to be at a time where that's what's working out. And I don't really know what to do with that, because I'm a person, I live in the world of facts. I want the facts more than anything. And the more and more time goes on, the more and more alone that I feel in even caring about something like a fact. Nobody wants to look up the facts. People just want to crap on me when I post Snopes links to things, like, because I'm that guy, right? Like, I'll go, okay, I'll drop the Snopes link, or I'll drop the video that actually proves something wrong, or and nobody cares. I just get crapped on, downvoted, my shit gets blocked because I'm evil, or I don't know, people report me. Like, it's crazy how the internet works. And I try to look to things that are outside of my expected opinion, because I am surprised sometimes. And there's a lot of issues that me as a leftist, I'm supposed to just be on board with blindly, but I'm not sure. You've probably heard me talk about, like right now, I'm talking about the problems with community and family. That's usually a right wing talking point. They're the ones that want the hierarchy. They're the ones that want the family and everything. But it's hard to ignore the fact that the more and more we allow families to break up, the more our divorce rate goes up, the more that families divide, the worse society seems to get. Now, I'm not saying they're correlated, or I'm not saying one is causational to the other, but it would be foolish to notice that those things didn't happen in tandem. And so noticing that doesn't make me a good leftist, I guess, because I'm supposed to be promoting individuality or other, like I'm supposed to be, egalitarian. I do believe people are equal, but to what degree then do we allow equal people to destroy other people's society? And these are big questions that we have about society. I don't have the answers. I just know that by sitting there looking at the facts, I don't really come to the same conclusions as everybody else on really either side. I'm not even sure I have conclusions. I guess I'm comfortable. See, and that's another thing I think that we struggle with in this world. We have to feel like we have a conclusion. We have to feel like we understand something, we have a handle on it. Otherwise we feel stupid or unimportant, or we're being left out of that thing everybody knows. And well, I guess I don't feel that way. I've talked to a lot of people who they like it's very interesting. People tend to think I'm smart because I ask a lot of questions. However, when I talk to people, when they feel the need to ask questions, that makes them feel stupid. So it's very interesting to me that people look at me and think I'm smart because I won't stop asking questions, yet they feel stupid when they do it, even though that's the exact behavior that they identified in me that defines me as smart in their mind. Why is that? Why do we do that? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. I like people that ask questions. I also see them as smart, but I also value their curiosity. I value that they're trying to understand an issue. I value that they're interested in the facts and the depths and everything else. And that just doesn't seem welcome. A lot of people just think that asking too many questions is a problem. It's in the way. You're supposed to just blindly be obedient to the ideology that you subscribe to, I guess. And, well, that just doesn't work for me. And I don't think it should work for most of us. I think that asking questions, I think challenging the system, I think that making sure I have my own understanding has always been a great tool I've had in life. I do seem to understand things better than other people. And I just think that's because I demanded the understanding. I went out of my way to learn it. I went out of my way to question. And so I have a lot of unique ways of thinking about things. And in that, I grew comfortable with the fact that I'm never going to know everything. I'm not going to be able to put it all together. I'm always going to feel a little bit stupid because the world's always the ability to understand reality is always going to be out of reach. I'm still going to keep pursuing it. I still do all of the things. Like, that's my main focus, right? Like, I want to understand reality. I want to understand what's going on. And mostly that's just a lot of questions. Because I guess here's the big, 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 hairy secret that I think there is about life. There is no point. Think about that for a second. I mean that. There is no point to life. I mean, not in the sense that there's literally 0 point. I mean, somebody did it for a reason. Something is driving the reality to exist, I think. But not because it's interested in purpose. It's like going to the movie. We don't go to the movie because we want an outcome. Maybe we do sometimes, but we go to the movie to hear the story, to watch the thing. We go to a play to watch it. We go to do all these things to experience it and just see what it is. Why don't we treat life like that? Because that's what I think life is. I think life is just a thing for us to go to and do for a while. And what you do with that is yours. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things of life. And it's so hard for us to understand that. I also think that's one of the things that the lack of, or the inability to understand that, is what drives us to tribalism. We find meaning in other people. We find meaning in our interactions. We find meaning in giving people smiles or whatever. And then we never think any deeper about it than that. And we get trapped in, that which is society, the rules of society, the game of society, right? The performance of society. Performing what is our job, our function, it's just all peacocking, right? You don't go to a party for any other reason than peacocking, do you? You're going, you want to brag, you want to interact, you want to show yourself as important. You want to meet other important people. And is that really all there is to life? Is that really what's making everybody happy? And I guess I'm sorry, I may break a few people here, because this is an interesting way of noticing the world. When you notice that all you're doing is performing. Everything you say and do to other people is about the performance. Will they accept me? Will this give me more? Will this advance my status? Will this, like, these are all the things that we're thinking about as we're living this. But what if all of that completely misses the entire point of everything? What if the experience is the point? What if absorbing the facts of just what is the point? What if simply experiencing it? What if that's it? Well, that's an uncomfortable place to think about, isn't it? It's uncomfortable to think that might be, because then it puts the responsibility on us for our existence, right? It puts the responsibility on us and how we're going to look on it, what we're going to do, why we're going to do those things. Because I decided long ago I don't fit into society right. I don't care how society wants me to be. And I don't like participating with it. I don't like putting up with all the people bullying me. That's one of the reasons I guess I'm doing this, is I'd like to find a way out of the fucking matrix, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't want to work for a boss who's lying to me all the time, who's abusing me, who's exploiting me. I don't want to be working for $15 an hour. My boss is charging $180 an hour for me. Like, it's fucking wild what happens in our world. That's just crazy to me that we have accepted this world. And so I've chosen to live differently, and I've chosen to think differently, as you can probably hear. I don't think that most people are willing to say how odd their thoughts are, because it's not comfortable. I don't know what to do. I don't think I'm going to gain some following or audience. I mean, how am I ever going to get paid telling people that life is meaningless? And that's different. I want to be clear. I think that's different than something like it doesn't matter. I do think it matters. But that's different. It matters because existence is real and we're all in this together. And it's important that we care about each other, and it's important that we interact with each other, and it's important that we take seriously our roles to reshape each other. I also think it's important to not get caught up in those that don't see it that way. See, because look, everything needs a villain. Everything needs a conflict. And yeah, we're living in a time right now of highly conflicted times. And that's really interesting. A lot of us are glued to our screens. We are watching dictator rising. We are watching authoritarianism trying to put its foot down. But then we also have things to watch, like the wild way they're protesting in Portland. Everybody's dressing up as furries, wearing gas masks out so that when ICE starts bombing out tear bomb, they can still dance in their little furry suits. It is wild. Naked bike rides. Like, yes, it's highly conflicted. But tell me it's not entertaining. Tell me you don't believe that there's entertainment in this. Tell me you don't believe that we can look at this and find a bright new future on the other side, just like we have every other time in history that we've done something horrible. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much faith in humanity. Maybe I'm just too hopeful. Maybe I'm just sitting back and I've had enough beer and popcorn that I can just enjoy the play for what it is without needing anything to happen. I don't know, but I think that's what's going on. I think that's interesting. I just think it's interesting to watch the world play out. And I guess that deviated a little bit from where I wanted to go. I wanted to talk about the facts of the world, but I still think we talked about some interesting things. Anyway, I guess I don't need to go on. I'm not here for answers or conclusions. I don't know. I don't really think I have those. I don't know that the conclusions that people have are the most valid ones. But I do think that we are all here needing to figure this out together. I do think that we need to do better. And I think that we will do greater when we find our way back to unity. And I guess until we do that, I guess that's what I'm going to advocate for. That's what I'm going to talk to people about. That's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to talk through our world. And I'm not going to do it because My ideas are pleasant or easy. I'm not going to tell people that listening to me is going to make their lives easier. I mean, there was a moment in there that it's like, if you actually take some of the things that I say to heart, these are kinds of things that can cause existential crisis. It can cause a crisis where somebody doesn't know how to fit into the world anymore because they understand some of these ideas. And that can happen. And and I don't even know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Is it this goes back to the cliche, right? It takes all types. We need people that are crazy to make it interesting. We need the villains of the world so that we have conflict and it's interesting. Like, how boring would the world be if it was a utopia? I think there's a lot of people that have explored the concept of how a utopia would break down because of how meaningless it would actually become to not have conflict. And so I think that's just part of the nature of the world. The conflict is going to need to be there. I don't know how else it could work. And I think we could all do better to accept this kind of a thing. I think we could all do better to accept that that conflict isn't the end of everything. It's what we do with that conflict that determines how it's going to go. It's how we handle that conflict that determines what the future is going to be like. And so we have that choice right now. The conflict is aplenty in the world. What are we going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? Anyway, I think I've talked this to death, so I think I'm going to go ahead and let it go for right now. Anyway, with all of that, I encourage you, seek community, real community, seek fact, and seek people in your life that disagree with you. Not in a disrespectful way, just in a, we can still get along, but we don't have to agree on everything kind of a way. It'll make you a better person, I promise. With that, be well.